Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Apprenticeship PHL 2021 Symposium. Welcome back to those who joined us yesterday for our opening plenary session, and welcome for the first time for anyone who may not have been able to join us yesterday. If you couldn't make it yesterday, we did record the opening plenary, so we'll upload it to this platform, hopefully within a day or two, and you'll be able to watch it at your leisure. As the slide says, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat over to the right within the Whova event website with your name and your affiliation. So everyone knows who I am. My name is Cassandra Shavney. I am the Apprenticeship Program Specialist at Philadelphia Works. Philadelphia Works is one of the proud members of Apprenticeship PHL. And just so you know a little bit more about who is putting on this conference, Apprenticeship PHL is a regional public-private collaborative with the overall goal of increasing and aligning registered apprenticeships and pre-apprenticeships for the benefit of our area's residents and employers. So Apprenticeship PHL works within Southeast PA, so Philadelphia and the surrounding counties. We have many, many members, 17 in fact. You'll see their organizations listed here. I'm very grateful and thankful to all of our Apprenticeship PHL members for helping to plan and execute this conference. Their expertise and knowledge was really what helped us get to where we are now with all of these sessions and amazing speakers and content. And you'll see many of these organizations represented on our panels, so you'll get to know them and their engagement with apprenticeships in our area. Apprenticeship PHL, what can we do to support you? We do a number of things, actually. One, outreach, education, and awareness. Things like this symposium, educating individuals about what apprenticeship is and how they can become engaged in the apprenticeship ecosystem. We also provide technical assistance to programs during their registration process, as they're starting up their program, and as they're thinking about maintaining and scaling. Related to that, we can assist organizations and employers in pursuing funding opportunities from the local, state, and federal level. And we also, as we are a regional collaborative, help to foster regional partnerships for apprenticeships to be able to thrive in Southeastern PA. Now, I'll tell you a little bit later about how you can get further engaged with Apprenticeship PHL, but you're also welcome to and invited to network using our event app, Whova, with all of the attendees. One reason we really like this event conference platform is that you can click that attendee tab over there on the left. You can see all of the over 220 people that are signed up to attend this conference. You can read their profile, send them private messages, and just connect after each session whenever you'd like. So feel free after today or any other day to log in and see who's joining you for the next 2 weeks. There's also a community tab where you can share and upload resources, see job openings, and even suggest virtual meetups that the Whova platform can plan for you, and you can do it right through the platform. You'll also notice there's another tab called Documents, which is where we'll be uploading any resources that our panelists share, any slides that you may see. So feel free to come back in a few days if you see anything that interests you that you'd like to take a look at again. You'll see it located in the Documents section. And then just a little housekeeping for today. As an attendee, you'll notice that you are muted with your cameras off. Today's session, again, is being recorded. So if you have any colleagues that couldn't make it today, they're welcome to come back and view the session at another time. And then as you're doing right now to introduce yourself, feel free to use the chat and the Q&A to ask any of our presenters questions. We'll have some time at the end where all of your questions hopefully will be answered. And we can also go back later and answer any questions that we weren't able to get to during the session. So how do you stay in touch? We're only here with you right now for an hour today. You are welcome to follow us on any of these social media pages. We're live tweeting using the hashtag APHL 2021. We invite you to join us in our Twitter conversations. And then you'll see at the top there is that doodle link. So we have set up a doodle poll so that you can sign up for a 1-hour meeting with a representative from Apprenticeship PHL. So I think Maria is going to put that in the chat for you guys. So feel free to sign up for a time. If you don't want to commit today, We'll have that link available throughout the entire conference, so you can log in and see what times are available for you to meet with someone, just to either become engaged with apprenticeship for the first time, meet new partners, learn more. There are lots of directions that those conversations could go in. So we're really grateful and thankful for you for joining us today. I'm going to turn it over to our moderator for today's session, John Colborn from JEVS, to take it away for our panel, providing industry perspectives on apprenticeship. John?
Thanks, Cassandra, and thanks, Maria, for all your work in helping getting this event organized. And thanks to Philadelphia Works for being a leader in the Apprenticeship PHL effort. I am really honored to be here with this panel of distinguished voices representing the employer perspective on apprenticeship. Perhaps more so than any other workforce development intervention, apprenticeship really requires a deep, deep engagement with employers. And so we have really a range of different experiences to share with you today, from folks who have been operating apprenticeship for a while to folks who are just getting ready to launch their first apprentice. And so I'm very excited to have them with us. I'm going to give them a chance to introduce themselves. And so I'm asking each of them to describe their organizations and how they are using or plan to use apprenticeship. And leading us off, though we can't see him, he's very much here, is John Bond. John.
Good morning. My name is John Bond. To get it out of the way, I do have a twin brother named James Bond, but he's my brother and I'm the cool one, so there you go. Good morning and welcome. My name is John Bond. I'm the training manager here at First Quality Retail Services. We are an absorbency hygiene manufacturing company. So we are the very popular company that makes toilet paper, paper towels, baby diapers, protective underwear, things that are in high demand for the past year and a half. And we've been doing the apprenticeship for the past 4 years, since 2017. We started off with our industrial manufacturing technician, and then grew into another apprenticeship, our industrial maintenance technicians, so our machine operators and mechanics that work on our production lines. I cannot speak enough about the benefits of a registered apprenticeship. It is key to several different things within our industry, to include talent development, retention when it comes to human resources perspectives, personal and professional development, not only for the apprentices, but also for those trainers. And then overall, it's just a mutually beneficial investment for the company. Because when you are able to invest in an apprenticeship, what you get back is tenfold, because you have someone that is, when one apprentice makes it through the program, they are with you for an enduring amount of time, and then shares that not only technical and professional perspective and knowledge, but also that benefit of you have a high morale team member that it's great to have on the production floor. So like I said, we've been doing it for the past 4 years, and we learn something new every year and with every apprentice. So again, I can't speak enough about it. I'm excited to talk to you more about it throughout the rest of this program.
Thanks so much, John. Next up is Ben Duran. Ben, go ahead.
Great, thanks. I wish I had a cool brother named James Bond as well, but I don't. So I'll tell you that today is my birthday. And because it is Groundhog's Day, I'll tell you that I did not see my shadow personally. I'm covered in snow. So I predict that the winter is going to end early, which I think everyone will be grateful for. I run a company, Integral Molecular. We're a biotech company in Philadelphia. We work closely with the University of Pennsylvania, Wistar Institute, which is actually how we were introduced to the apprenticeship program. And as a biotech company, we've been involved in the apprenticeship program for about 1.5 years. We've had 2 apprentices and are looking forward to more. Kind of related, we're also involved in the biomedical technician training program at Wistar, which is a training program for community college students largely that provide internships in our company. So several of the people who have gone through internships at the BTT program then went on to apprenticeship program, become apprentices in our company, and then became full-time hires in our company. So it's a natural progression, getting, a little bit of experience, a little bit of training, more experience, more training, and then a full-time job. It's become an important feeder for our company with great employees and entry-level employees who are smart, hardworking, and able to pick up fairly complex technologies. As a biotech company, we specialize in complicated research, just like similar university labs, Penn and Drexel and Jefferson and others. We do complicated research, and that requires a lot of training on machines, on experiments and cell culture, molecular biology. So that process of training is really important. Getting small experiences first, growing into larger experiences like the apprenticeship program for like 6-month time periods, and then growing into full-time employment with us to continue that training and ultimately become very skilled in biotech and pharma, and really opening doors for them in the pharmaceutical industry. I'll also mention one of the reasons that we're involved, although not a primary reason, but certainly an important reason, is also racial equity. That's a primary driver in our company for many decisions we make. And one of the decisions we made a number of years ago was that there weren't enough minorities represented in science in general or within our company. And what that meant was that we feel responsible for going out and finding those students and training those students and bringing them into science. And that means going through possibly non-traditional routes and non-traditional universities and community colleges and training programs to introduce the opportunities in biotechnology and get those people involved and give them the opportunity to get involved. So that's certainly something that we're always thinking about, and especially with the events this past year, we're even more mindful of how much the apprenticeship program can impact racial equity in our industry. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Jan.
Thanks, Ben, and thanks for that message. Really a critical role that apprenticeship can play in terms of diversifying occupations that haven't seen a lot of diversity. So I really appreciate that. Next up is our panelist, Aravinden Ayurinde. Aravinden, you want to tell us a little bit about your prospective work on apprenticeship?
So good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me as part of this panel. I'll just quickly share my screen with you all. Can everyone see my screen? Okay, I'm getting the nod. So I'm with Greater Philadelphia Health Action, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at the organization. And GPHA was founded over 50 years ago to really be a source of healthcare for communities most at need. And most of our health centers are found in communities that at that time, many institutions wouldn't want to be a part of. Having a hard time projecting my slides, so I'll just speak to it. Our mission is essentially to provide comprehensive quality care in the areas of medical services, behavioral health, and dental, and we also have a child development component of our service as well. We have 11 health centers throughout the city of Philadelphia, and this slide here kind of shows where we are geographically located. With also our school-based health programs, we are embedded within 5 schools in the city of Philadelphia, where we provide similar services as we do in our traditional health centers. This slide just speaks to overall the services that we provide by division. And then this slide speaks to our collaborative nature, hence why I'm part of this panel here, because GPHA does have an apprenticeship program that we have been in the planning and implementation phase until COVID hit. That seems to be a reoccurring theme lately, where we were intended to have, I believe it was 15 apprentices as part of our practice or embedded in our practice, and then COVID hit. So I'll speak a little bit about that as we go along in this presentation. But this slide again speaks to all of the kind of collaborative partnerships that we have. And one of the reasons why Greater Philadelphia Health Action decided to join an apprenticeship program are for multi reasons. One being a pipeline, because one of the areas that we are constantly looking for employees are within the medical assistant profession. And then also just the mutual benefit where students gain an experience as part of our pre-apprenticeship and then post-apprenticeship program, as well as us being able to give back to our existing partnership, because this one of the schools that we're in is where we provide services for their student population. So it was just a natural fit to then extend the apprenticeship into that facility. So I'll turn it back over to you, John.
Thanks, Aravinden. And I know we'll have a chance to hear a little bit about the nature of the apprenticeship program that you're looking to develop. And then finally, Jason, I want you to tell us a little bit about Accenture's work, which has got deep experience with apprenticeship elsewhere and is now bringing that experience to Philadelphia.
Yeah, thanks, John. And thanks, Maria and Cassandra and Apprenticeship PHL for hosting this conference today. I appreciate to be part of the panel. So by way of quick introduction, Jason Vermillion. I am the director of our local markets program here in Philadelphia. And I also have the opportunity to kind of lead our local expansion of apprenticeships here in Philadelphia. And so as we've been involved from an Accenture perspective with apprenticeships since about 2016, and we're looking to expand along with our partners at Aon and building on some of the success we've had in Chicago and bringing some of that success here to Philadelphia. So we're looking to, we have within Accenture, we have a small program right now that we're looking to expand this coming year and really build on that and really encourage other corporations to really consider apprenticeship as part of a model. And so, for Accenture, I think there's kind of, when you talk about, why we're doing this or a little bit of the context and background, kind of really three things kind of drove that. One is, we've always been focused on what we call skills to succeed. We set a goal a number of years ago to train 3 million people with the skills to get a job or build a business. And we've kind of eclipsed that goal. We also have some work that we do in terms of being a technology company. And we are responsible for creating some of the automation, some of the artificial intelligence, some of the technologies that that might cause people to have to look for a new career. And so we feel responsible as creating some of those technologies to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to participate in the workforce of the future. And so we've started a piece of work called the Inclusive Future of Work that's focused on that and ensuring that everyone has the opportunity to participate and be in automation resilient jobs. And then kind of third, there's this belief that talent is really everywhere, but opportunity is not. And so we really wanted to make sure that, that coupled with the idea of having diverse teams is really important to success. You've all probably read various reports or business case studies, et cetera, that, kind of diversity on teams. And that's the widest range of diversity, whether it's socioeconomical or ethnic or education, right, really contributes to the success of a team. And so, looking at some of those factors, really considering what Accenture can do to kind of help in that. And that's really what led us to looking at apprenticeships as truly a viable recruitment strategy for our people and a valuable talent strategy that's really linked back to our business.
Thanks, Jason.
Yep.
Appreciate it. So, I think we've heard now really across all the panelists a consistent theme around accessing new sources of talent, diversifying the workplace and bringing new voices, new perspectives into the workplace, and a little bit of a social responsibility angle for some of the folks on the call. So I'm wondering, as those of us who are making the case internally to our companies in terms of how we're getting apprenticeship seeded into the organization, what are some of the messages that seem to work best with internal stakeholders, whether that was HR or the chief financial officer or whoever it was that needed to be sort of brought along in that conversation? And John, maybe you could lead us off in that conversation.
Sure. So when first starting our apprenticeship, we looked at our turnover. That was the inciting incident for us to invest into this program. We had a higher turnover rate, and we were wondering why that was happening. We also looked at training, how we could bring in, so we're high-speed absorbency hygiene manufacturing, so we bring in team members straight out of high school. And so they don't need to have any training other than a high school diploma and be 18 years old initially. So when you're taking somebody from there and then training them to be a full, a line operator or a mechanic, there is a lot of steps you need to go through. And so we looked at the apprenticeship program as also a training regimen especially for new hires, especially those new hires that have a lot of potential. So, and then it just came down to the cost benefit analysis. We looked at the amount of time and money it took to train new team members, and then looked at that turnover, and we were seeing a higher number of turnover than we had anticipated. Once we started the apprenticeship program, and we've now had over 10 apprentices come through our program, and now that turnover is a lot less. Our turnover has decreased exponentially with the start of the apprenticeship program, especially throughout the rest of our companies. So that was the first thing we looked at, was the turnover margin, and then we look at the training aspect. And that is what sold it to those decision makers, being our operations manager, our executive leadership team and owners, on why they should invest in this program as well. Because once we started the program, again, we were able to invest in other training opportunities like new pieces of equipment, and now we have a high-speed manufacturing or high-speed training lab with incredible modules that every team member can take advantage of, not just the apprentices. So that overall, the cost-benefit analysis allowed us to move forward with the program.
Thanks, John. Jason, you were sort of nodding along. I guess the people on the call can't see it, but I saw you nodding along. Maybe you could just add the perspective from Accenture.
Yeah, happy to, John. And I was, absolutely nodding along, because we went through exactly the same, effectively analysis, right? Which is looking at, our turnover, looking at the training dollars, looking at, effectively lost talent that might leave. But maybe just to sharpen the point there a little bit, and maybe just a little bit of insight for the others listening in on the call would be, what we really did in a nutshell was look at kind of that entry-level position. And we really kind of broke it down into kind of two areas. Looking at the skill set and looking at, that entry-level position and determining what part of that position does not require effectively a 4-year degree. I mean, Accenture traditionally recruited from a 4-year degree colleges. And so we really broke that entry-level role down in kind of two components, and kept, kind of the stuff and the skills and activities and responsibilities that were kind of 4-year aligned as one, and the others kind of broke out and created this apprenticeship role effectively. And that is something that's been really beneficial for us to really, think about how we might do that across different roles. Certainly this started in technology, and we're looking to basically expand that into different areas of our business, but really, again, looking at that role, trying to divide it up and really think about, what's required of that role to be successful.
That's excellent. And Aravinden, I'm thinking of Greater Philadelphia Health Action. You're using apprentices in an industry, actually really across our panelists, you're using apprentices in an industry that doesn't have a real tradition of using apprentices. What was the case statement for Greater Philadelphia Health Action?
I think for me, at least, it was a very easy sell to my colleagues, similar to what Jason just described as well, where we were looking at turnover in a medical assistant group. This is really a group of individuals that are hard to find across the city. It does, for our organization, we require a certification process that often medical assistants either opt not to get beyond their training. So this was an opportunity for us to build a program that will bring them on board in a pre-apprenticeship program status. And then as they're completing the pre-apprenticeship, they were able to get their actual certification. So it really helped us promote not just becoming a medical assistant, but getting that certification, which will be more valuable to them in their career path ultimately. Also allowed us to enhance their training at the school we were in, because these students already had an interest in healthcare. They were already enrolled in a health tech component. So this was just going to augment that practical experience for them. And so from the employer standpoint, it was almost a win-win for us. We got a chance to see who could we really recruit from this cohort of students to ultimately meet a need that we also had internally. And also just figure out what are students actually getting in these medical assistant training programs, because we're often as employers blind to the actual training that they get and where the gaps are until you hire them. So this allowed us to kind of see where that gap is and fill that as we brought them on. Hopefully we're going to bring them on board.
I know you will, and I love your bringing in the pre-apprenticeship component here. As you know, we work with other employers around medical assistant roles, and there is just huge turnover in those jobs across the industry, I think. And I think a lot of it is people don't really know what they're getting into when they start those jobs, and so the idea of providing that pre-employment or pre-apprenticeship exposure does do a little bit of sorting out, right? You get to sort out, and as you say, you get to assess the talent before they're necessarily on the payroll. That's great.
And you're absolutely right, John. Sometimes individuals sign up for these training programs, not aware that they hate blood, for instance. So this gives them that chance to really see, is this really what I want to do before making that commitment and getting that certification?
Ben, we started off with John in this round of questioning, and John actually had a little bit of a story to tell about not only the case statement, but sort of what kind of results you're starting to see on that. I'm wondering if you might be able to share that from Integral's perspective.
Sure, I'll add kind of maybe another dimension to the value that the apprenticeship program has really had on us. You know, as we start out the questions, you know, getting buy-in to the program internally was not hard because we saw the value of it, and we know the value of you know, young, motivated, you know, employees to get involved and learn new things. But what we didn't quite expect was the value that it had on some of our existing employees as well. Because when you bring in apprentices, what it does is it creates opportunities for some of our younger managers to get experience training those apprentices. So people within our company who might not normally have the opportunity to supervise someone or train someone or coach someone or mentor someone because they're not quite experienced yet, but they're getting that experience along with the apprentice. So everyone's growing at the same time and getting more experiences. I should also say you know, the apprenticeship program, even though we've been doing it for a year and a half, it's part of a larger process within our company. As I said, we're involved in the Wistar BTT program, have been for many, many years under the guidance of Bill Warner. So it's kind of a pre-apprentice internship that leads the apprentices along those pathways. And you know, I should also say, you know, even though they've been really impressive candidates, you know, there's this pre-qualification before they get to us, before they step foot in our company, we know that they've already passed a number of tests and hurdles and qualifications, and they're really good. You know, many of them have joined us, you know, out of community college. Many of them have kept going to get their bachelor's, their master's, and we even know some that have gotten their PhDs or in PhD programs now. So it's wonderful to see them continue growing. Again, it's mostly just making sure they have the right opportunities to keep growing, and they benefit and the company's benefited along the way as well.
That's great, Ben. So let's just turn to the question of how does apprenticeship sort of reshape or change the workplace? And I'm wondering, maybe Ben and John, you could speak to that for operating programs. Jason, you've seen some of that from other experiences at Accenture. And Aravinden, you have some goals, I think, for Greater Philadelphia Health Action. So Ben, maybe why don't you just continue? Are you seeing any impact on the workplace? How does apprenticeship change that?
Well, I'd say, you know, certainly along the lines of giving everyone those opportunities to grow and you know, manage and train. That's kind of one of the things that you know, we've certainly seen. You know, I can touch on the equity part too, because as I said, you know, especially with last year, you know, racial equity and our responsibility to reach out to minority communities, to bring them into science in general, and to bring them into our companies specifically, grew even more. We're doing that in a number of ways. We actually have 5 different areas that we're making progress on and actively recruiting and training and mentoring and financial contributions, but lots of different ways. And the apprenticeship program is one of them. That certainly changes the nature of who we are, our workforce. It also changes the dynamic of the discussions internally about racial equity because we have more voices at the table and more voices to provide insight into how we can make a difference. What can we do? How can we reach out further? What is really of value to historically Black colleges, and what's of value to community college students? What can we do specifically to provide those opportunities to get the training? There's this big gap, especially in biotech, to getting in the lab, to stepping foot in the lab. You have to have this big knowledge, this big field of knowledge before you can do anything really. But if you can chart a course where there are entry-level positions that you don't need that huge knowledge base, as Jason said, breaking the entry-level positions down, what really needs a 4-year degree, what things don't need a 4-year degree, but can get there with experience. And if you break those down, you find a lot more entry-level position, which again helps the company, because then we have this great pipeline of employees and students coming into our company that help the company grow. I'll say the only downside to hiring really smart people from the apprenticeship program and other programs is that eventually they leave and go back to grad school or med school. But that's great, that's what we want to see, and they grow on to bigger things, whether it's within our company or not. It's great to see them getting there and helping be one of those steps along the way.
Ben, that's a great testimonial. John, how about for First Quality? What are you seeing in terms of the impact on the workplace of having apprentices?
Honestly, it's a lot of fun. And I say that because when we had our first, I'll give you an anecdote. When we had our first apprentices graduate the program, and it was brand new to us, we had a communications meeting, and the apprentices didn't know they were going to be receiving their certificates. And that's the other part about this. They get a state certified but nationally recognized certificate at the end of the apprenticeship. So when so I had their certificate, I hit it, and then at the end of the communication meeting, I went up to, front of the room, and I called that apprentice up in front of his shift. And it took the trainer, the supervisors, the managers, and everybody to get this apprentice to where it is. So it was like a mini graduation. And seeing that applause for that apprentice having gone through this 18-month apprenticeship program and successfully, graduate, you get that warm, fuzzy feeling. Well, that warm, fuzzy feeling resonated with other team members, and they became hungry to say, hey, what is this apprenticeship program? I heard you talking about it before, but how can I be a part of it? So in that regard, it boosted morale, it brought interest, and then it also helped with recruiting, because now you have all those team members going out telling their families, hey, we have an apprenticeship program, and it's been talked about it before, and so did Aravinden. When there is a pipeline, it builds a pipeline, and there is a path forward. It's no longer coming in at an entry-level position and then wondering what needs to be done in order to get promoted. There is a step-by-step progression that is written out for you in the apprenticeship program. So in that regard, it resonated well with incoming team members. It also boosted, I want to say boosted the business, but again, we shared this apprenticeship program format with our sister plants. So we're here in King of Prussia. We've got 3 other plants in Pennsylvania, one in Lock Haven, Macklehatten, and Lewistown, Pennsylvania. We've got 3 in the South, one in Macon, Georgia, and 2 in South Carolina. And now they have apprenticeship programs, and they are seeing exponential, turnover or decrease in turnover and increased production, because now you have team members that are smarter, they're higher morale, so their efficiency of the line itself, the production line is higher, the machine waste is lower, so you have that benefit, and then also the safety aspects of it all. So there are the secondary and tertiary effects of the apprenticeship program, let alone the apprentice being happy to come to work and that resonating with the rest of his team and then the rest of the production floor. So that's how it's changed the business, not only in the numbers when it comes to finances and turnover, but also morale and efficiency, waste, production. I mean, I could keep going, but in those different areas and those different aspects, it's boosted the business overall.
Yeah, it sounds like a really powerful, almost culture change story that you're able to really leverage apprenticeship for these much bigger impacts on the organization. That's really impressive. Thanks, John.
That's exactly it. That hit the nail on the head. The culture shift, we're big about our company culture at First Quality, and that's exactly what it does. It's a living embodiment of the company culture. That's a great way to put it. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Jason, I mean, in some ways, you are an example of John's story, right? Accenture did this in Chicago, had this great experience, is now expanding it around. What were some of the workplace effects in Chicago that sort of made the case for this expansion?
Yeah, thanks, John. And I would probably echo what Ben and John also said to date in terms of all the benefits, you know, the increased morale, you know, when you talk about even getting down to the individual level and folks, you know, having their, you know, roles and responsibilities, you know, being able to move up within the organization. So you're really providing a career, right? It's not necessarily just a job, but it is a career. And particularly giving people the, you know, the opportunity to advance as they continue to progress. You know, and I would say, you know, in general, you know, very optimistic. There was, you know, a lot of, you know, increased excitement around apprenticeships. We actually just recently had a North America town hall for all of our Accenture people. And we featured apprenticeships on that town hall, and you know, a lot of great informal feedback coming back to the team around that. So I certainly think there is there's certainly a strong desire and certainly a lot of support for apprenticeships, and we've seen that kind of within, you know, kind of the four walls of Accenture, not only externally but internally as well.
Thanks, Jason. And before I bring Aravinden into this conversation, let me just ask anyone who's on the call and wants to put a question into the chat, please feel free to do so. We'd be happy to turn to any questions from the audience in our coming 20 minutes or so. Aravinden, prospectively, you know, what are some of the objectives that maybe Greater Philadelphia Health Action is looking at in terms of the impact that this could have on the organization?
Definitely some of the objectives are giving the apprentices that real work experience so that they know what it is about coming to work on time, looking the role, playing the role, just really building up their workplace practices in terms of how they integrate or go from being a student to an employee in a professional setting. I think going a bit back to your initial question about what I had to sell to my colleagues, some of that, especially in healthcare, is related to HIPAA compliance, really being mindful of you're treating people who are coming in sick. And our job is to make them feel better in whichever way that is. So really incorporating customer service skills, the professional aspect of the job, and then the technical components that they have to master in that role. So that's really meeting those three objectives at the end of the experience was very important to us. And in doing so, we really mimicked what it would look like to apply for a job, reviewing their resume. So the apprentices, before they were formally accepted, had to go through an interview process with the Chief Health Center Administrator, review their resume, review their file. So it really gave them that workplace experience. They learned about the credentialing process because in the healthcare sector, we have to make sure people are validated or go through some credentialing. So they learned a bit about that right up until then the offer letter experience. We actually sent them offer letters to mimic that experience for them. So our goal is really to give them that, because many of them were juniors in high school. So just really giving them that experience that they may have not otherwise have had. And then also for those who they would be shadowing on site, many of our individuals are not trainers naturally. So it gave us an opportunity to really test that. So they went through some training, how to really be a proctor and teach someone. And I think as employers, we typically think when someone new comes on board, you just assign them to someone and boom, the training is done. But this really forced us to think about who are good trainers, because not everyone that is good at a skill set can be a trainer. And that's where we sometimes see that we're struggling, that, okay, who trained them? And did they really go through what we expected them to go through? Do they deliver it in an impactful way? So this process allowed us to really gauge a lot of that.
That's excellent. I love that. And I just want to acknowledge a shout out to Jim Fody for his comment around the secondary impacts of apprenticeship, that not only is there impact on the apprentice and the work unit that they're involved in, but sort of how that can feather out across the organization. So thanks for that. So let's turn, so far all happy, good stories from all of our panelists. But look, we have apprentices at JEVS, and it's not always a straight line. There's challenges along the way. If you're doing registered apprentices, the registration process isn't always the easiest. Designing that competency and related technical instruction pathway isn't always easy. Bringing the mentorship aspects into play, sometimes that takes some attention or fine tuning. I'm wondering across the panel, where there are some challenges, or where even getting ready to launch apprenticeship, you're seeing challenges. Anyone want to lead off here? Jason?
Hey, John.
Sure.
Oh, sorry. Just go ahead, John.
Okay, thanks, Jason. So I think Aravinden hit it earlier, talking about just because somebody is good at a job doesn't mean they're going to be a great trainer. So it's making sure you're ready for anything that you can be prepared for. So when starting your apprenticeship, identifying the trainers beforehand and training the trainers on how to train, making sure you actually have your related instruction as prepared as possible. Because before you start your apprenticeship, you don't know what you don't know. And there will be a lot of different aspects that may come up, like, oh, what about reimbursement for travel when somebody is going to a community college for a formal education? Or what about not scholarships, but grants that may be available to you that you don't know about until you actually start your apprenticeship? And so you mentioned it before, John, with, the paperwork isn't always a fun thing when you're trying to start your apprenticeship, but then once you have it, there's things you need to do to maintain your registration with the apprenticeship and training office, and then any grants that become available with the different local and national opportunities that may come up. So again, it's some of the learning aspects to it, where maybe you identify somebody in your department to be the apprenticeship guru, for lack of a better term, but that apprenticeship point of contact that's going to handle everything apprenticeship outside of, and having that be its own role instead of it being an additional duty for another trainer that may be in your department, or however you want to work it. So just some of those things, being able to answer those questions once you actually start the apprenticeship, and trying to learn from best practices from other companies that may have an apprenticeship as well.
Jason?
Yeah, thanks, John. I was just going to actually touch upon a little bit around actually COVID, because one of the pivots that we made, right, is going to a virtual apprenticeship model. And so when you talk about, to paraphrase kind of your question a little bit, what are some of the challenges, right, that we're kind of dealing with? Certainly not unique to Accenture, certainly, and probably all of us on the call have experienced, the virtual nature in some sense. But we've actually enhanced our apprenticeship program to address some of those. Certainly, with apprentices coming in, the expectation is that they would need a little bit more coaching, a little bit more guidance, a little bit more mentorship and connections. And without being able to have that in a physical sense, as we've typically done in the past, what are we doing in a virtual sense? So we've actually enhanced by adding on like 3 times a week touch points with their team lead. We've added on additional kind of town halls. We've enhanced the training curriculum that they go through to making sure that they get additional training in additional soft skills, working virtually. And certainly they have access to all the benefits that we have from an Accenture perspective. So when you talk about different resources for coping and working remotely, being enabled by technology, making sure that they're set up for success, certainly we wanted to make sure that we give them every chance to be successful. And certainly working in a virtual environment has been challenging for us, and we wanted to make sure that we continue to kind of address that and have the right, right processes, the right programs in place to help them.
I can add on to that too, because you mentioned a lot of the apprentices and interns and other co-ops that we bring in. As you said, they don't know what they don't know sometimes, and almost by definition they don't have a lot of work experience, or sometimes life experience in some cases, And so I think part of our responsibility there is mentoring them, finding out what their strengths are and how they can build on those. All of us have strengths, all of us have weaknesses, but if you find their strengths and you say, this is something you're really good at, keep going in that direction, provide those opportunities, provide that training, point it out to them, because sometimes they don't know yet what their strengths are. As you get older, maybe we figure that out, but and with experience and training, you figure that out. But sometimes they don't know yet. But what I've found for certainly our co-ops, our apprentices, our interns, and anyone really, is that as you get to know them, and you give them feedback and provide that feedback along the way, they get to know themselves. And that provides them a career trajectory, like, oh, this is really interesting and I'm good at it. And this can become my lifelong career if I wanted to.
Yeah, I love that. And I think of your work, Aravinden, working with folks right out of high school. I mean, you're really building work habits for folks who probably don't have a lot of workplace experience. It's just the nature of being out of high school. And so, when the cell phone can come out at work and when it can't, and all of that stuff is, very, very foundational. And I just think of the work that you're doing must have to take some of that on, right?
Absolutely. And I think also speaking with, following up with what Ben said, just pivoting, right? Because I think one of the things that I would give to, or advice that I would give individuals, as much as you plan for the best apprenticeship experience, things happen that you can't account for. We were literally a day before we were going to roll out our implementation plan when the school district closed all of the schools. And so for us, it's just recognizing that you may have to pivot all the time and adjust as things come along. So with that, we are now figuring out how we can safely bring apprentices on site, because again, our concern is not just their safety, but also the safety of the patients and our existing staff as well. And so we also have had to make some changes in light of COVID.
And I think you've just given us the lesson of the last 11 months, right? Which is be ready to pivot no matter what. Well, listen, I want to thank the panel so much for all your comments. We're going to end with sort of a lightning round of last bits of advice, one bit of advice for an employer who's thinking about going down this route. Before we do that, though, I want to thank the organizers, Cassandra and Maria. I want to thank ApprenticeshipPHL and Philadelphia Works for putting on this whole session. Looking forward to seeing everyone in the panels and sessions to follow later this week and next. So who wants to lead off with a little bit of advice? John, can you lead us off?
Sure. If I can give any piece of advice, I would just say this. If you are thinking about starting an apprenticeship program, don't hesitate. There are so many resources out there to help you get it started. You've got we're being hosted by APHL right here. There's a lot of information out there and so many reasons to start this apprenticeship program. So if you have any hesitation, do not hesitate and don't be afraid to ask for help. You're not in it alone. There are so many resources that the Commerce Department, every state and local agency wants apprenticeships to take off and to do well. So, and they have afforded us the opportunity to, use these resources. So please don't hesitate, don't wait to ask for help, and please get it started.
Anyone else?
I can add, I think that one piece of advice I would say is that, many apprenticeship programs, I'm not sure all of them, but many come with some dollars attached, and that can be attractive. And it certainly makes it easier to sell internally. But, we would do this with or without the external funding, because I think there's even more value in what you get out of the program and the apprentices that come in that grow within the company and provide that entry level feeder into a career within our company. So there's a lot of value there that may not be appreciated at first. And it does take some paperwork and, some mentoring to get it all going, just to be upfront with anyone starting the program. You have to be willing to put that in, but the benefits are enormous, and you and the apprentices will get things out that you didn't expect.
Aravinden?
Yeah, and I'll agree with my colleagues that there's value in it and that you should really just jump in. We thought it wouldn't work in healthcare, and we see that we had to think creatively on how to make it happen. So it's definitely a space in almost any industry for apprentices. And I think, and just the last bit of advice I would say is also just assess your risk, because you just want to also make sure that while all these positive things are happening, that you're also assessing risk prior to taking it on.
And Jason?
Yeah, I think the one thing I'd probably reiterate is really around looking at that entry level role and seeing if there is a possibility of dividing that entry level role up into one that doesn't require a 4-year degree and other parts that do. I think that's really a tangible step that a employer can kind of take coming out of this conversation and really look at that. So that's my one bit of advice leaving with the group.
Thank you so much to the panel. This has been a great conversation, so appreciative. Cassandra, I'm going to turn this over to you to take us out.
Thank you, John, and thank you everyone for your very candid experiences with apprenticeship. It's much appreciated, especially for folks that might be new, or like John Bond said, the ones that are thinking about apprenticeship but aren't quite sure yet if they want to jump into it. So thank you for joining us today. As you've probably seen, if you've looked at our agenda, we're holding one session a day so as to not take up your whole calendar with this symposium. We hope you'll be able to join us tomorrow for a discussion about what it means to be an apprenticeship sponsor. Those are the organizations that are taking on sort of a lead role in the apprenticeship, completing the registration paperwork and sort of convening all the partners. So if you're interested in what that role looks like, be sure to join us tomorrow at 11 a.m. On Thursday, we're having a panel on apprenticeship sustainability, again at 11 a.m. This program, or that presentation, will look at what your program looks like after that initial registration. So how do you maintain, sustain, and grow your apprenticeship? So we have some local and national speakers who will speak about their experience doing so. And then you'll get an email from me about this, but we are hosting some small group chats on Friday and on Monday. So there are some specific niche topics in apprenticeship that we have some small group chats about. So feel free to join us for those, where you as an attendee will have the ability to unmute, come on camera, and participate with colleagues and others interested in apprenticeship on those topics. So I encourage you to check out the agenda within WHOVA to see if you are interested in joining any of those. And some of them are actually small group chats. So there is a cap for a couple of the sessions. So if you want to join, I definitely encourage you to add that to your agenda. And thank you to Maria again for adding that doodle sign up poll into our WHOVA chat. If you'd like to meet with an Apprenticeship PHL representative, we're here to chat with you about what apprenticeship could look like at your business or your organization. So again, thank you, and I hope we'll see you again at one of our future sessions. Goodbye.